They laughed at her, some openly, others just with that condescending look, that mixture of pity and superiority. But no one, not a single soul, believed that Helena Martins had inherited anything worth inheriting. A rundown roadside diner? That's all she got? After everything she's been through? The whispers followed her like a shadow. Some shook their heads, others even tried to console her with those fake, half-hearted words. Maybe you can sell it for scraps. It's something, I guess. But what no one knew was that behind those dusty windows, behind the faded neon signs and cracked tiles, there was a secret that had been buried, hidden, locked away for decades, and that secret was about to change everything. Helena Martins had never believed her life would turn into a soap opera. She wasn't a character from a movie. She was just a widow, a mother of twin girls, a woman trying to survive. It had been 2 years since Daniel's accident. 2 long, exhausting, suffocating years. The night the police knocked on her door still haunted her, their polite but grim faces, the words, "I'm sorry," echoing in her ears, the world collapsing around her. Daniel had been her anchor, her safe place, the one person who made life seem manageable. And then, he was gone. Since then, it had been her and the girls, Sophia and Emma, 7 years old, 2 bright, curious, mischievous little souls, the only reason Helena found the strength to get out of bed every morning. They lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Bills piled up faster than paychecks. Groceries became strategic calculations. Birthdays were modest. Vacations were dreams for other people. Still, they managed. Or, at least, they tried. And now, as if life hadn't thrown enough curveballs, there was this. The lawyer's call. The unexpected inheritance. The joke of a diner. The Blue Star Diner. Helena remembered it vaguely from her childhood. A place her Uncle Lucas had owned. An old-fashioned, chrome-lined diner by the highway, halfway between nowhere and nothing. She hadn't seen her uncle in years. Family gatherings had turned cold after arguments over money, resentment, old wounds no one cared to heal. But apparently, Uncle Lucas had never forgotten her. And when he passed, out of all the relatives, out of all the vultures circling, waiting for property, cash, something, he left it to her, the Blue Star Diner, the first time she saw it again. Her heart sank. It was worse than she imagined. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds. The front sign flickered weakly, only 2 letters of Blue Star still lit. The glass windows were smeared with dirt and grime. Graffiti covered the side wall. It looked abandoned, forgotten, dead. Great, Helena muttered under her breath. A legacy of roaches and broken dreams. But the lawyer had been insistent. "It's not what it seems, Miss Martins," he had told her, sliding an envelope across the desk. "Your uncle was a complicated man. He asked me to personally hand this to you." Inside the envelope was a single brass key, old, heavy, tarnished, and a note, just 7 words. "Look beneath the surface. Trust no one." Helena stared at the diner, the key in her pocket, the note etched into her memory, the others, her cousins, aunts, and so-called family. They had laughed, mocked, rolled their eyes, but standing there in the fading afternoon light, something in her gut whispered. They were wrong. They had no idea what this place really was, and soon, neither would she. But she was about to find out. The first time Helena stepped inside the Blue Star Diner, it felt like walking into a forgotten photograph. The kind that sat buried at the bottom of an old shoebox, faded, curled at the edges, covered in dust, but still carrying stories waiting to be told. The bell above the door jingled weakly as she pushed it open. The air was thick with the smell of stale grease and forgotten memories. Faded vinyl booths lined the walls. The checkered floor tiles were cracked and stained. Behind the counter, an ancient coffee machine sat in silence, rust creeping along its edges. It looked exactly how you'd expect a diner to look after years of abandonment. And yet, there was something else, something beneath the dust and decay, an echo, a weight. She ran her fingers along the countertop, tracing the scratches, the old cigarette burns. It was as if the walls were watching, listening, waiting. In the back office, Helena found the first real clue. The room was small, cramped, barely big enough for a desk, a file cabinet, and an old safe bolted to the floor. The safe was locked, but the brass key from the envelope fit perfectly. Inside, there were no wads of cash, no precious jewels, just documents, dozens of them, passports, bank statements, maps, all in different names, different languages, but all with one unsettling thing in common. The photos, in every passport, every ID, was the same face. Her uncle Lucas. At different ages, with different hairstyles, sometimes clean-shaven, sometimes with a beard, but unmistakably, him. Helena's breath caught in her throat. What the hell? And at the bottom of the safe, a leather-bound notebook, worn, the cover cracked and faded, the pages filled with handwritten notes. In code, the next discovery changed everything. Tucked behind the file cabinet, hidden in the paneling, she found it. A small, almost invisible door. A hidden entrance leading to the basement below the diner. The air grew colder as she descended the narrow stairs. The basement wasn't just a storage room. It was something else entirely. Metal shelves lined the walls, filled with sealed boxes, old radios, encrypted phones, stacks of unmarked files, and in the center, a table covered with blueprints, photographs, and what looked like surveillance equipment. Helena's pulse quickened. She recognized landmarks on the blueprints, bridges, tunnels, airports, not just from this city, but from all over the country. It didn't make sense. Uncle Lucas had been a cook, a diner owner, a grumpy old man who told bad jokes at family barbecues, or at least that's what everyone thought. Suddenly, a noise, footsteps, upstairs. Someone was inside the diner. Helena's heart raced. She quickly tucked the notebook into her bag and crept up the basement stairs. Peeking through the crack in the office door, she spotted them. 2 men. Suits. Serious expressions. One of them carried a briefcase. The other had a gun holstered at his side. "Are you sure this is the place?" one asked. "It matches the intel," the other replied. "Keep searching." Helena's mind raced. Intel? What the hell was happening? Who were they? What did they want? She had to get out. Carefully, she slipped out through the back exit, her heart pounding, her legs trembling. In her bag, the notebook, the passports, the evidence, and 1,000 unanswered questions. That night, after putting the twins to bed, Helena sat at the small kitchen table, staring at the notebook under the dim light of a single lamp. The girls were safe. For now. But deep down, she knew. Life would never be the same. The note from the envelope echoed in her mind. Look beneath the surface. Trust no one. Whatever this was, her uncle had been part of something bigger, something dangerous, and now, so was she. Helena barely slept that night, every creak of the floorboards, every car passing outside, every distant siren made her heart jump. The image of the 2 strangers inside the diner burned in her mind, their calm, methodical search, the way they spoke, like professionals. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. They were looking for something, and she had it. The next morning, as the girls got ready for school, Helena's phone buzzed. An unknown number. Her first instinct was to ignore it, but something told her she couldn't. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was calm, measured, and unmistakably authoritative. "Miss Martins, my name is Helena Kuznetsov. I believe we need to talk about the Blue Star Diner." Helena froze. Her grip on the phone tightened. "Who are you?" "A friend," Helena replied simply. "And if you care about your children and your uncle's legacy, you'll meet me." The line went dead. 2 hours later, Helena sat across from Helena in a small, quiet cafe on the edge of town. The woman was sharp, elegant, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through her. There was an accent, Eastern European, but subtle, refined. "I knew your uncle well," Helena began. "Very few people knew the truth about him." Helena's hands trembled under the table. "I'm still waiting for someone to tell me what that truth is." Helena studied her for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Your uncle was not simply a diner owner. He was part of something bigger, a network. People who operate quietly, behind the scenes, providing safe havens, information, connections." Helena's mind spun. "You're saying he was a spy?" Helena's lips curved into a faint smile. "Not exactly. He worked with them, for them, with us." The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. Helena reached into her bag and placed the notebook on the table. "I found this." Helena's eyes flicked to the notebook. Her expression hardened. "You opened the safe." Helena nodded. "And there were passports, documents, surveillance equipment." "Good," Helena replied simply. "That means you're not as naive as they think." "They?" Helena leaned in, her voice lowering. "The men you saw in the diner, they're part of a group your uncle helped dismantle years ago. They're looking for evidence, connections that could expose them. And they think it's in the diner?" "It is," Helena confirmed. "But they don't know. You have part of it already." Helena's pulse raced. "This is insane." "It's reality," Helena corrected. "And you, Miss Martins, are now in the middle of it." The next few days were a blur. Helena introduced Helena to people, contacts, all with that same quiet, professional demeanor. Former intelligence officers, cybersecurity experts, people trained to operate in the shadows. They explained everything. The diner was more than a greasy spoon on the side of the road. It was a front, a meeting place, a safe house, and hidden beneath it, a server room, encrypted databases, evidence collected over decades, money laundering, weapons trafficking, political blackmail, criminal empires built in the dark, and Uncle Lucas had been the quiet gatekeeper of it all. But now, it was Helena's responsibility, whether she wanted it or not. There was one final piece. The key wasn't just for the safe. It opened another door, one hidden beneath the diner, leading to a secure underground vault. Inside was the full archive and a hidden trust fund worth millions, money set aside by governments, by allies, to fund operations and protect those involved. Helena stood in the vault, her hands shaking as she stared at the rows of servers, the boxes of files, the briefcase filled with foreign currency and gold bars. It didn't feel real. 2 weeks ago, she was struggling to pay rent. Now, she was the guardian of a multi-million-dollar secret and a target. But as overwhelming as it was, she thought of Sophia, Emma, their future, and she made a promise to herself and to the memory of her uncle. "I won't run. I won't hide. I'll protect this and them." No matter what it cost her, days turned into weeks, and Helena's life had become a whirlwind of secrets, shadows, and unexpected allies. She was no longer just a mother struggling to keep her family afloat. She had stepped into a world she barely understood, one filled with danger and deception. Elena remained by her side, guiding her through the maze of intelligence, legal battles, and shadowy figures. "She's been through more in these weeks than most do in a lifetime," Elena said one afternoon, observing Helena's worn face. But the real challenge was yet to come. Her siblings, Marcus and Victoria, had been silent since the reading of the will, at least on the surface. But Helena knew better. They were angry, bitter, and suspicious. They had expected a piece of the inheritance, something tangible, something to cling to. Instead, Helena had received the entire diner, its contents, and the secret legacy buried beneath it. Marcus, tall and imposing, had already started making calls, hiring lawyers and investigators. Victoria, with her sharp gaze and icy demeanor, was quietly gathering evidence to challenge the will's validity. They won't give up, Helena thought, watching their thinly veiled resentment grow. One evening, as Helena sat with her twins doing homework, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Her blood ran cold. She showed the message to Helena, who frowned deeply. "This is just the beginning." And she was right. Strange incidents began to happen. Cars parked outside her apartment for hours, unfamiliar faces in the neighborhood, late-night phone calls with silence on the other end. Helena felt the weight of eyes watching her every move, but she refused to back down. Her life, her children, her uncle's legacy, everything was on the line. One afternoon, a man appeared at the diner's door, tall, well-dressed, with an air of authority. "I'm Michael Reeves," he introduced himself calmly. "I'm here to help." He explained that he was a retired intelligence officer, now working privately to protect those caught in the crossfire of old cases. "You're not alone in this," he assured Helena. "But you have to be careful. The people after you, they're dangerous." Helena nodded, the weight of responsibility pressing down harder than ever. As the days went on, Helena began to learn the true extent of the legacy she'd inherited. Hidden bank accounts, trust funds established for her and her daughters, encrypted communication channels, safe houses scattered across the country. She was no longer just a diner owner. She was the guardian of a secret network, a living link to a hidden world. But with great power came great risk. Her ex-husband, Derek, who had long since drifted away, suddenly reappeared. He claimed to want to help, but Helena wasn't sure she could trust him anymore. Why now, she wondered. What does he really want? She kept her guard up, knowing that in this game, trust was the most dangerous gamble. Late one night, Helena sat alone in the diner, the soft hum of the city outside contrasting with the turmoil inside her. She looked at the old photographs lining the walls, images of her Uncle Lucas smiling at opening day, memories of simpler times. And yet, she knew she couldn't turn back. This was her legacy now, her fight, her responsibility. And she would face it, no matter what. The days that followed were a test of Helena's resilience and courage. Every phone call, every knock at the door, every unexpected visitor was a reminder that she was no longer living an ordinary life. The secrets she had uncovered at the Blue Star Diner had drawn her into a dangerous web, one where allies and enemies wore the same faces. Trust was a currency far too expensive to spend lightly. Helena remained her closest confidant. She taught Helena how to navigate the murky world of espionage, hidden surveillance, and coded messages. Keep your friends close, Helena warned, and your enemies closer. But even Helena's calm guidance could not prepare Helena for what was coming next. One evening, Helena received a package with no return address. Inside was a small, battered box. She opened it cautiously. Inside, a silver locket and a note. This is only the beginning. Your uncle's past is catching up. Helena clutched the locket tightly, memories flooding back of her uncle's rare smiles and whispered warnings. Meanwhile, her siblings' legal battle escalated. Marcus and Victoria launched every possible challenge to the will, hiring expensive lawyers and forensic accountants. They questioned her mental state, claimed her inheritance was a mistake. But Helena stood firm. She had the documents, the witnesses, and the support of those who knew the truth. Her daughters, Sophia and Emma, became her light in the darkness. Despite the chaos, Helena made sure their lives stayed as normal as possible. She kept their routines, their laughter, their innocence. Yet, the danger was never far away. One night, the lights at the diner went out unexpectedly. A shadow moved just outside the window. Helena's heart pounded. She reached for her phone, then stopped. No signal. She wasn't just fighting for an inheritance anymore. She was fighting for her family's survival. As the months passed, Helena learned to balance the life she'd lost and the new one she had inherited. She trained herself to be vigilant, cautious, but never afraid. The Blue Star Diner was no longer a joke. It was a fortress, a symbol of hope, a legacy worth protecting. And Helena Martins. She was no longer just a widow with twins. She was a guardian, a protector, a woman who had found strength she never knew she had. The pressure was mounting. Helena found herself at the center of a storm that showed no signs of slowing. Every day brought new challenges. Emails filled with threats, anonymous calls in the dead of night, unseen eyes watching her every move. But Helena refused to be broken. One afternoon, a letter arrived from an unexpected source, a high-ranking government official congratulating her on her uncle's contributions. He expressed regret for the hardships she faced, but assured her she was part of a network that valued loyalty and courage. This letter was a lifeline, a reminder that she was not alone. Elena arranged a meeting with the retired CIA station chief, Mr. Jenkins, a man Helena had heard about but never met. Tall, distinguished, with eyes that held decades of secrets. "Your uncle was a good man," Jenkins said quietly. "He sacrificed much, and now, so must you." He handed Helena a small envelope. Inside, a key. "Not for the diner," he explained, "for a safe deposit box. Contains documents critical to your protection." Helena felt the weight of history in her hands. Back at the diner, Helena noticed changes. The renovations had begun. New paint, modern equipment, a cafe corner. A tribute to her uncle's legacy and a symbol of a new beginning. But with progress came new risks. One evening, while reviewing security footage, Helena caught a glimpse of a figure lurking near the back entrance. She alerted Michael Reeves, who promised to increase surveillance and security measures immediately. Despite the constant threats, Helena found solace in her daughter's smiles, Sophia's laughter in the kitchen, Emma's curiosity about the world. They were her anchor. She promised herself she would protect them at all costs. As the legal battles slowly wound down, with Marcus and Victoria's challenges dismissed, Helena finally began to see a future, one where the diner thrived, where the secrets of the past were honored but no longer controlled her. The final message from her uncle, recorded months before his death, played in her mind often. "Helena, if you're hearing this, know that I trust you. You are stronger than you believe. Use this inheritance wisely. Protect those you love. And remember, sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in plain sight." With renewed determination, Helena faced forward, ready to build a new life, one where she was not just a widow with twins, but a woman who embraced her destiny. She sat alone in the diner long after midnight. The hum of the refrigerators, the ticking of the old wall clock, and the occasional buzz of the neon sign outside were the only sounds breaking the silence. The girls were asleep upstairs. Michael was gone for the night. And Helena Martins was staring at the leather-bound notebook, open in front of her, page after page of codes and names and places she still didn't fully understand. But that night, something shifted. A symbol on page 47. One she hadn't noticed before. It looked like a family crest, but stylized. 2 ravens, a dagger, and a rising sun. She flipped back through the earlier pages and saw it again and again. It wasn't random. It was everywhere. The crest marked certain names, certain cities, certain vaults, and then she saw it, underlined, circled, dated. Operation Morningfall, May 17th, 1983. She whispered the words aloud, the hairs on her arms rising. She had seen that phrase before. It was on one of the encrypted drives Michael had recovered from the underground server. She grabbed the drive and connected it to her laptop, using the passcode Helena had taught her. The screen flickered, and the file opened. Classified footage, photographs, documents, names, some redacted, others not. And in the center of it all, a photograph of her Uncle Lucas, standing beside a group of people, some in military uniforms, some in suits, all looking deadly serious. One of them was Helena. Another, she recognized from the cafe in town, the quiet old man who always ordered chamomile tea and tipped in cash. Jesus, Helena muttered. They were everywhere, hidden in plain sight, and they had been watching her for weeks. But it didn't stop there. The file detailed something else, a hidden network of vaults spread across the country, storing not just intelligence but artifacts, historical, religious, scientific, some too dangerous to be known by the public, others too valuable to be owned by any single government, and at the heart of it, the Blue Star Diner, not just a front, not just a safe house. It was the original site, the place where the first vault had been built, a foundation stone for everything else. Helena leaned back in her chair, her heart pounding. Her uncle hadn't been some minor operative. He had been one of the architects, one of the founders. And now, she wasn't just the owner of a diner. She was the heir to something massive and terrifying. She read deeper into the documents. They spoke of an artifact hidden beneath the diner, unstable, powerful, protected by a rotating group of guardians, the last of whom had been Lucas. And now, it was her. She looked up at the flickering neon light. Everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. Claro, aqui está o Bloco 7, A Grande Revelação, Parte 2, Suspense, Pausa Dramática. Com aproximadamente 6.000 caracteres, mantendo o tom sombrio, misterioso e pronto para a narração, sem descrições de efeitos sonoros, apenas texto direto e envolvente. And now, she was the only one left to protect it. The truth had clawed its way into her world like a cold hand on the back of her neck. Slow, deliberate, impossible to ignore. Helena sat at the edge of her kitchen table, the cracked notebook spread out beneath flickering lamplight. Pages and pages of coded phrases, maps, dates, names she'd never heard of, and one phrase that kept echoing louder than all the rest. Keep it sealed, do not awaken it. That sentence was circled in red, twice. Beneath it, another line, more rushed, less steady. Almost as if her uncle had written it in a panic. If it stirs, it remembers. She didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Questions swarmed her like hornets. What had she inherited? Why her? Why now? By morning, the decision was made. She would confront Helena, not politely, not cautiously. She needed answers. No more half-truths, no more cryptic warnings. When she arrived at the safe house, Helena was already there, standing by the window like she had expected Helena. I read the notebook, Helena said without preamble. I found the vault. Helena turned slowly, her face unreadable. I know. Helena stepped closer. I want the truth, all of it, right now. A long pause. Then, Elena's voice dropped an octave. There are some truths, she said, that unravel a person when spoken aloud. Helena didn't flinch. Try me. So Helena did. What she revealed was not something Helena could have ever imagined, even in her most feverish nightmares. The diner, the Blue Star Diner, was built not because of its location, not because of some family nostalgia, but because it was the only structure strong enough, stable enough, to be placed directly above the artifact. Not a bomb, not a stash of gold, but a chamber. Hidden beneath the earth, before the diner even existed. Older than any map, older than any recorded history in the region. A sealed door, and something behind it. Something not man-made, something not human. It was found by accident, Helena explained, during the construction of the original highway in the late 40s. Lucas was one of the first agents assigned to secure the site. He made it his mission to build over it, mask it, protect it. But protect what? Helena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Helena hesitated, then said just one word. Memory. The thing buried beneath the diner wasn't alive. Not in the way people understand life. It was ancient. Not flesh or metal, but something else, something capable of retaining history, energy, events, as if the world had bled its past into it. A relic that didn't just observe, it remembered. And sometimes, it responded. And over the years, people tried to touch it, decode it, use it, but it fought back. Elena's eyes darkened. 3 agents went inside the vault in '67, only one came out. Helena's hands trembled. What happened to the others? They lost time, lost identity. They spoke in languages no one recognized, described things no one could verify. Then, they disappeared. Helena backed away, breath catching. And now it's waking up? She asked. The energy spikes? The dreams I've been having? Helena nodded. You were born into this legacy, Helena. Lucas trained you without you even knowing. He prepared you. With stories, phrases, habits. You are imprinted with the same patterns the artifact recognizes. Helena felt the air grow colder, heavier. This isn't about inheritance, she whispered. It's about containment. Yes, Helena confirmed. And right now, you're the only person left who can keep the door closed. Helena turned slowly toward the diner window. The neon sign flickered, somewhere beneath her feet. Something ancient remembered her name. And for the first time in her life, Helena realized she was no longer running from her past. She was walking straight into something older than fear itself. And there was no turning back. They say knowledge is power, but the truth is, knowledge can also be a curse. And what Helena now knew was far too much to be safe anymore. Because behind the facade of that dusty old diner, behind the hidden compartments, the servers, the files, was something no one had ever expected. Not even Helena. There were names of politicians, bankers, judges, business magnates, people whose public lives were clean, spotless even, but whose secrets were buried deep in that basement vault. Bribes, cover-ups, deals made in shadows, evidence that could collapse entire empires if revealed. And Lucas Martins, her late uncle, hadn't just been storing this information. He had been trading it, bartering knowledge for protection, leverage, access. He had become a ghost in the machine, unseen but everywhere. And now, Helena was the one holding the match over the powder keg. She sat alone one night, the blue glow of the server monitors casting harsh shadows across her face, the hum of data coursing through encrypted systems, and the weight of every truth now in her hands. She couldn't breathe. Every password she entered, every file she opened, felt like opening another door that should have stayed locked forever. There were photos, surveillance footage, recordings, maps, signatures, instructions for what to do if compromised. What scared her most was that her uncle had prepared for this, prepared for death, prepared for someone else, her, to inherit the storm. And among the documents, one video file stood out, labeled only with a date, 1 week before his death. She clicked play. Lucas appeared on the screen, older, more tired than she remembered him. His voice was firm, but there was a tremor, like a man who'd run out of time. "If you're seeing this," he began, "then I'm gone." He paused, looking into the lens with a mixture of regret and defiance. "I never meant for you to be part of this, Helena. But I also knew I didn't have a choice. I made enemies, powerful ones. I played with fire, and now it's your turn." Helena leaned forward, frozen. Lucas continued, "There's a network, deeper than I ever told Elena. They control things from behind curtains you can't even see. Governments, markets, wars. I did what I could to keep them in check, to expose their plans. But I'm only one man." He took a shaky breath. "I've passed on the files, the names, the accounts, but they'll come for them. And for you." A pause. Then, softer. "Don't trust anyone completely, not even Elena. If you have this, it means the war has already started." The video cut out. Silence. Helena sat motionless, her breath shallow, her mind reeling. Elena hadn't mentioned any of this. Was she hiding something? Had Lucas known something more? She wanted to believe in Elena, in Michael, in anyone. But now, doubt seeped into her veins like poison. The truth was heavier than she ever imagined. And what haunted her most was the final look on her uncle's face. It wasn't just fear, it was guilt. Guilt for passing this burden on to her. And maybe for what he had done to keep it hidden all these years. She closed the laptop, heart thundering. Outside, the diner lights flickered. A car passed by slowly, then circled back. She was being watched. They knew. They knew she had opened the final vault. And now, they would come for her. There was no turning back, only forward, into the dark. She stood frozen. The basement air was dense, thick with dust, history, and something else, something unspoken. Her fingers trembled slightly as they hovered over the old laptop's touchpad. The screen glowed with a dim blue light. Folders, dozens of them. Most were labeled with codes she didn't understand. But one folder stood out. It had no name, just a blinking red dot. She clicked it. The screen flickered, and then her name, Helena Martins. It was there, on a government document, official, stamped, classified. Subject 47B, monitor level red. She stared, swallowed hard. Her mouth had gone dry. Lines of information scrolled across the screen. Birth date, place of residence, known associates, her children, her job history, old photos from her wedding, images of the twins at the park, candid shots taken without her knowing, taken from a distance, or worse, up close. Her blood ran cold. There were surveillance logs, voice recordings, email captures, video stills of her at grocery stores, in her apartment, talking on the phone. They'd been watching her. For how long? Why? And what did her uncle have to do with it? Her breath caught when she saw another document, a timeline. It started before her birth. It listed Lucas Martins as Handler 19C. Below that, notes connecting him to Subject 47B. She scrolled further. A video file autoplayed. The frame was grainy. Lucas was there, hunched at his desk, wearing the same flannel shirt he always wore. His eyes looked tired, hollow. "If you're seeing this, it means I failed to stop them. And it means you've found the basement, the laptop, the truth. You're in danger, Helena." Her knees weakened. She leaned against the table, listening to every word as if they were being whispered directly into her soul. This goes beyond governments, beyond money, beyond any criminal empire you've ever imagined. They'll come for the notebook, the files, the vault. But they'll come for you first. Another window opened, a live camera feed, the diner's exterior. A man was outside, pacing, wearing a headset, holding a tablet. She didn't recognize him, but the way he moved, calculated, confident, sent shivers down her spine. She closed the feed. Another window popped open. This time, a conversation, a recorded phone call. Voice 1. She's in possession of the files. Voice 2. Proceed with caution. She's more capable than we thought. Voice 1. You want me to terminate? Voice 2. No, observe. She might lead us to the vault. Her eyes widened. They weren't planning to kill her yet. They were using her, tracking her, waiting for her to lead them to whatever her uncle had hidden. And she was doing it, unknowingly, until now. A folder titled The Vault opened. Coordinates, floor plans, blueprints of the diner, and below it, something massive. A chamber, sealed, double-layered steel with biometric locks. Her fingerprints were listed as authorized, so were Lucas's, no one else. And then, audio footage. This time, Elena's voice. We let her believe she's uncovering it herself. Lucas trained her without her knowing. She's intuitive. She follows patterns. She'll find it. And when she does, we'll be ready. Helena's entire body went numb. Elena? The woman who said she wanted to protect her? Was it a lie, a manipulation, or something more complicated? She closed the laptop, slowly, deliberately. The notebook in her bag suddenly felt heavier, more dangerous. She turned toward the basement door, heart pounding, mind racing, and that's when she heard it. The creak of floorboards. Above her, someone was in the diner, again. She crept toward the stairwell, ears straining, every step calculated, silent. A voice above. Male. Calm. I told you she'd come here. Another voice. Female. Familiar. We wait. She'll show us where it is. Her hand tightened on the banister. She couldn't go back up. Not now. Not with them waiting. She checked her phone. No signal. Of course, that wasn't an accident. She was being cut off. Isolated. Forced. But Helena wasn't that woman from a few weeks ago anymore. She wasn't a scared widow. She was part of something ancient, hidden, explosive. And now, everyone wanted what only she could find. But no one could be trusted. Not even the ones who had been helping her, not even Elena, because the deeper she dug, the more she realized. The truth wasn't black or white. It was blood red and soaked in betrayal. You know how it is when the night gets so dark you can't see a hand in front of your face? That's exactly where Helena was, caught in a darkness deeper than any road fog, with no clear way out. Every step she took felt like sinking into quicksand, every breath heavier than the last. That old diner, that dusty relic her uncle left behind, wasn't just a building anymore. It was a trap, a cage slowly closing in. Helena felt it down to her bones. She was being watched. Not by just one pair of eyes, but by many. Eyes that didn't blink, didn't waver. Eyes that tracked her like a predator stalking prey on a lonely highway. You ever felt that chill creeping up your spine when you know something's wrong but you can't put your finger on it? That's what she felt all the damn time. Those cold, dead stares were constant. Like the night was alive, breathing down her neck. Her phone became a curse. The damn thing would ring out of nowhere, and when she answered, there was nothing but silence. That kind of silence that screams louder than words. No clicks, no voices, just empty space. Ghost calls, they call them. Messages from the dark. and every time that happened, her heart slammed against her ribs like a runaway truck barreling downhill. She gripped that notebook tight, the one with all her uncle's secrets scribbled in a code that made no sense to most, but to her, it was a puzzle she had to solve. The faded ink and worn pages weren't just old words. They were a map to something bigger, something dangerous. Every line, every symbol was a step deeper into a shadowy world she never wanted to be part of but couldn't walk away from. Trust? Hell no. That word lost all meaning. Helena, Michael, even some strangers who showed up with their slick smiles and secretive eyes. Were they helping her or setting her up? She had to stay sharp, sharper than the edge of a rusty blade on an old trailer hitch. In this game, one wrong move and you're toast. Then came the package. No return address. Just a battered box that looked like it had been through hell. Inside, she found a silver locket, cold, heavy, with a faint engraving worn down by time, and with it, a note scrawled in shaky handwriting. This is only the beginning. That note hit her like a fist to the gut. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. The past, with all its shadows and secrets, was coming for her, not just to haunt her, but to drag her into a storm bigger than she could imagine. The legacy her uncle left wasn't just papers and keys, it was a fire burning in the dark, and now she was standing right in the middle of it. And she knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back now. No pulling over on the shoulder, no calling it quits. This road was hers to travel, come hell or high water. The night wasn't empty. It was full of whispers, full of dangers lurking just out of sight. And Helena? She was ready to face it all, with every ounce of grit she had left. Things were getting heavier for Helena. The threats didn't stop, and strange faces kept showing up around the neighborhood, eyes always watching, measuring every move she made. You could feel the weight in the air, like a storm about to break. But Helena, she wasn't the kind to back down easy. She had her girls to think about and a secret to protect, one that ran deeper than anyone could imagine. That night, the darkness outside seemed thicker, colder, like it wanted to swallow everything whole. Helena locked every door and window tight, but the feeling that someone was lurking just beyond her sight didn't leave her for a second. She kept watching through the crack in the curtains, heart pounding, muscles tense. Then, out of the shadows, a figure moved near the rusty old gate that guarded the back of the inn. Just a silhouette, but enough to set her nerves on fire. Her phone buzzed then, a message from an unknown number. "Don't trust anyone. They're closer than you think." The words hit her like a punch, cold and sharp. Who was sending these warnings? Friend or foe? The doubt gnawed at her, but she knew one thing for sure. The danger was real, and it was closing in. Determined not to be caught off guard, Helena took the next day to search for answers. She drove around town, poking her nose where it didn't belong, trying to sniff out who might be watching her or what exactly they were after. At the local bar, she overheard hushed conversations, whispers about strangers asking questions, strangers digging too deep. People were talking about them, a group she'd never heard of, but that now felt like a ghost looming over everything she cared about. Helena's gut told her the threats weren't empty words. This was serious. The legacy left by her Uncle Lucas was no ordinary inheritance. It was a tangled web of secrets, lies, and dangers that reached far beyond the dusty walls of the Blue Star Diner. Now it was all on her shoulders. Her siblings' coldness and legal battles were just the beginning. More than family drama, Helena was facing shadows from the past, shadows that were growing darker, stretching closer, ready to pull her under if she let them. Every step she took, every glance she threw over her shoulder reminded her that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But Helena wasn't ready to fold. She was fighting for more than just a piece of land or some forgotten building. She was fighting for her daughters, for the truth, and for the chance to turn this nightmare into a story of survival. And as the sun set behind the rolling hills, she made a silent vow. No matter what came next, she would stand her ground. Because sometimes the road is long and the night is dark, but the heart of a fighter? That never fades. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. Helena couldn't shake the feeling that every shadow held a secret, every glance hid a threat. The Blue Star Diner wasn't just a rundown building anymore. It was a battlefield. And Helena was right in the middle of it, fighting with nothing but her wits and a stubborn heart. She spent hours going through the old notebooks, the encrypted messages, the maps that seemed to point to places she'd never heard of. Every page pulled her deeper into a world she never imagined existed. A secret network of people who lived and died by silence, who moved like ghosts through cities and countries, hiding in plain sight. Sometimes, Helena caught herself wondering if she was losing her mind. The weight of it all was crushing. But then, she'd think about Sophia and Emma, their innocent faces lighting up her darkest days. For them, she had to be strong. She couldn't let the fear win. One evening, as she sat behind the counter, a cold draft swept through the diner. The old neon sign flickered weakly outside, casting eerie shadows on the cracked tiles. Helena's phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. They're watching. They never stop. Her hands trembled as she read the words. Who were they? And how close were they? The diner's creaking walls suddenly felt less like old wood and more like silent witnesses to something dangerous. Helena looked around, half expecting to see eyes staring back at her from the dark corners. But there was only silence. The hum of the city outside, the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. She knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone. Her mind raced back to Michael Reeves, the retired intelligence officer who had offered his help. She needed him now more than ever. The threat was real, and Helena knew that if she wanted to protect her family and the secret legacy of the Blue Star Diner, she couldn't do it alone. The next day, Helena met with Michael at a quiet cafe near the highway. He looked tired but determined, a man who'd seen too much but refused to back down. "We've got eyes on you," he said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were photos, blurry images of cars parked near her apartment, people lurking just out of sight. "They're organized," Michael explained. "This isn't random. Someone's been watching the diner for a long time." Helena's throat tightened. The diner was more than a building. It was a key to a secret so big that powerful people wanted it buried forever. "But why me?" she asked quietly. "Because you're the last link," Michael replied. "Your uncle trusted you. He believed you could keep this safe." Helena swallowed hard, the weight of those words settling heavy on her shoulders. The cafe was quiet, except for the soft murmur of other patrons. Outside, trucks rumbled by on the highway, oblivious to the dangerous game unfolding miles away. They spent hours planning, strategizing. Michael taught Helena how to spot danger, how to keep her communications secure. He told her about the people who'd be coming, those who didn't care who got hurt as long as they kept their secrets hidden. That night, Helena lay awake, the shadows of the diner creeping into her dreams. The faces of strangers haunted her, but so did the memory of her uncle's smile, the promise he'd left behind. She wasn't just fighting for a place. She was fighting for a legacy, one that demanded courage, sacrifice, and strength she never knew she had. As the dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Helena made a silent vow. No matter what came next, she would stand tall. Because some roads aren't meant to be traveled alone, but they must be traveled anyway. Helena felt the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders, but she refused to show it. Every day was a new battle, sometimes against unseen enemies, other times against her own doubts and fears. The Blue Star Diner had become more than just an inheritance. It was a fortress, a puzzle, and a secret that demanded to be uncovered. Her nights were restless. The The creaking floorboards and distant city sounds became a soundtrack to her paranoia. Every phone call without a voice, every glance from a stranger made her heart race. Yet she couldn't turn back, not now. Michael was a steady presence, teaching her the art of vigilance. He showed her how to use encrypted messaging apps, how to spot surveillance, and how to read between the lines of the cryptic notes left by her uncle. They worked late into the night, decoding codes and piecing together the web her uncle had spun. One afternoon, as Helena walked the diner's perimeter, she noticed fresh tire tracks in the dirt behind the building. Someone had been there recently. The thought sent a chill down her spine. Who was watching, and what did they want? Inside, she found a new folder on the desk, unsigned, unmarked. Inside, pictures. Pictures of her, the diner, even her daughters playing in the park. The message was clear. She was no longer just a guardian of secrets. She was a target. Despite the danger, Helena found strength in unexpected places. Sophia's laughter, Emma's questions about the stars, the small moments that reminded her what was truly worth fighting for. The diner had become their home, and she vowed to protect it at all costs. One evening, a car pulled up quietly outside. A woman stepped out, sharp eyes, calm demeanor. "I'm here to help," she said simply. Her name was Rosa, a former intelligence analyst with a connection to Helena. Together, they would uncover the truth buried beneath the diner's walls. Helena was no longer alone, but the storm was just beginning. The days blended into long, restless nights as Helena, Rosa, and Michael delved ever deeper into the tangled web surrounding the Blue Star Diner. Every file they uncovered, every encrypted message they decrypted, every faded photograph they examined added another layer of complexity to a mystery far bigger than Helena had ever imagined. This was not just some local secret tucked away in Santa Catarina. No, this was part of a sprawling network that reached into the highest and darkest corridors of power across the country. A shadow world operating just beyond the surface of everyday life. Helena felt the weight of it all pressing down on her. Her role was no longer just that of a mother trying to protect her young daughters, or a diner owner trying to keep her small business afloat. She had become the reluctant guardian of a dangerous legacy, one that put her and everyone she loved in the crosshairs of ruthless enemies who would stop at nothing to bury the truth forever. At home, the girls, Sophia and Emma, still needed her gentle care and attention, but Helena found herself slipping away into the shadows of her own life, consumed by secrets that threatened to shatter her world. She often sat by the dusty windows of the diner, gazing out at the passing headlights on the highway, wondering if she would ever find peace again in this chaotic storm she'd been pulled into. Rosa, her closest ally and confidant, explained more about the diner's true purpose. It wasn't just a rundown roadside eatery. It had been a safe haven, a critical node in a clandestine network providing shelter and support to whistleblowers, spies, informants, and rebels who dared to stand against corruption and injustice. Lucas, Helena's uncle, had been more than just a cook or a grumpy old man at family barbecues. He was a silent guardian who had risked everything to protect the truth hidden beneath layers of lies and deception. But the enemies were closing in fast. The threats escalated from cryptic messages on her phone to shadowy figures following her routes to unfamiliar cars parked near her daughter's school. The line between friend and foe blurred, and Helena learned that in this dangerous game, trust was a rare and costly luxury she could no longer afford. One stormy night, as the rain hammered against the diner's windows, Helena discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Something her Uncle Lucas must have left behind for her to find. Inside was a dusty briefcase sealed with an emblem she didn't recognize at first. As she pried it open, her breath caught in her throat. Inside were documents revealing the names of powerful and dangerous people deeply involved in criminal enterprises, political conspiracies, and betrayals that reached to the very top of government. The reality of her situation was overwhelming. Helena was no longer just a woman fighting for her family's survival. She was now a keeper of dangerous secrets, a beacon of hope for those who believed in justice and truth in a world rife with corruption and darkness. Despite the fear and uncertainty, Helena's determination never wavered. With Rosa's unwavering support and Michael's expertise, she prepared herself for the fight ahead. The truth had to come out, for her daughters, for her uncle's memory, and for every person who depended on the survival of the hidden network. No matter what the cost, Helena vowed she would not run or hide. She would face whatever darkness lay ahead, ready to protect those she loved and to shine a light on the shadows that had threatened to consume them all. Helena's life had become a constant balancing act between the daylight normalcy she tried to maintain for her daughters and the shadowy world she'd inherited beneath the Blue Star Diner. Every moment was a test of her resolve. Every decision could tip the scale toward safety or disaster. Her nights were restless, filled with dreams of figures lurking just beyond the glow of street lamps, whispers carried on the wind that felt more like warnings than mere echoes. She could no longer pretend that this was just a strange chapter in her life. It was a new reality, harsh and unforgiving. The allies she found in Rosa and Michael were her anchors. Rosa's deep knowledge of the intelligence world helped Helena navigate treacherous waters, while Michael's steady presence reassured her when paranoia threatened to take hold. Together, they uncovered more clues hidden in encrypted files and cryptic messages, leading them closer to the core of the conspiracy. Helena discovered coded letters, diaries with fragmented memories, and old recordings, pieces of a puzzle that her uncle had spent decades assembling. Each revelation added weight to the truth that the Blue Star Diner was the tip of a massive iceberg, hiding a secret society entrenched in corruption, espionage, and betrayal. But with each discovery came new dangers. Unknown operatives shadowed her every move, and she grew wary of every stranger who showed even a flicker of interest in her life. The message she received months ago, "Stop digging or you'll regret it," echoed in her mind with every step. Still, she refused to yield. Helena understood that the truth was a double-edged sword. It could free her and those she loved, or it could destroy them all. One day, Helena found an old photograph tucked inside a book in the diner's dusty back room. It showed her uncle with a group of men and women, some familiar faces, others strangers, standing outside a grand mansion she'd never seen before. The photo was dated decades ago, but it was clear that this was a gathering of people bound by a secret mission, one that Lucas had been deeply involved in. Helena's curiosity was relentless. She wanted to know who they were, what they stood for, and why her uncle had risked so much for them. With Rosa's help, she began tracing connections, digging through archives, and interviewing those few who had once worked with Lucas. The web of intrigue grew wider and darker, revealing ties to international espionage, political manipulations, and shadow governments. The Blue Star Diner was more than a front. It was a battleground for power struggles fought in silence and secrecy. Despite the danger, Helena felt a strange sense of purpose awakening within her. She was no longer just a woman caught in the crossfire. She was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Her resolve hardened with every secret uncovered, every risk taken. Her daughters remained her light in the darkness. Their laughter and innocence reminded her daily of what she was fighting for, not just survival, but justice and hope for a better future. The final pieces of the puzzle were still elusive, but Helena knew that the answers lay ahead. Whatever awaited her, she was ready to face it head-on. Helena's journey had reached a crossroads. The deeper she delved into the tangled secrets of the Blue Star Diner and her uncle's hidden life, the clearer it became that the stakes were far higher than she'd ever imagined. This wasn't just a family legacy. It was a war fought in shadows, where every ally could be a potential enemy, and every secret uncovered brought new threats. Late one evening, as rain lashed against the diner's cracked windows, Helena sat alone, reviewing the notes and files she'd gathered. Her mind raced, piecing together fragments of conversations, encrypted messages, and faded photographs. Each thread she pulled led to more questions than answers. Her phone buzzed suddenly. It was an unknown number. Hesitant but curious, she answered. "Helena," came a low, calm voice. "We need to meet. There are things you don't yet understand. Things that could change everything." The voice belonged to a man named Carter, a former operative who had once worked with her uncle. His warnings were cryptic but urgent. He spoke of betrayals within the network, of double agents, and a coming reckoning that would shake the foundations of everything Helena thought she knew. Despite the danger, Helena agreed to meet. In a dimly lit cafe on the outskirts of town, Carter revealed pieces of a conspiracy so vast it made her head spin. Government officials, criminal cartels, and secret organizations were all entangled in a web of deception, and her uncle had been at the center of it all. "You're not just inheriting a diner, Helena," Carter said quietly. "You're inheriting a responsibility, a fight that has been going on for decades, and it's far from over." As she listened, Helena felt the weight of the world settle on her shoulders. But alongside the burden came clarity. She wasn't alone. She had allies, resources, and most importantly, the strength to carry on. Returning to the diner that night, Helena looked out at the rain-soaked highway stretching into the darkness. The road ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but she was ready. For herself, for her daughters, and for the legacy her uncle had entrusted to her. The next morning, Helena woke with a resolve she had never known before. The weight of the past no longer crushed her. Instead, it fueled a fierce determination to protect what was hers, and what her uncle had sacrificed so much to keep safe. The diner was no longer just a forgotten relic. It was a fortress guarding secrets that could topple empires. She spent the day coordinating with Carter and Helena, planning their next moves carefully. Every step needed precision. The enemies lurking in the shadows were relentless, and one wrong move could cost her everything. But Helena wasn't about to back down. Her daughters, Sophia and Emma, remained her anchor, reminders of the light in this dark maze she now navigated. She promised herself to shield them from the dangers, to give them a childhood unmarked by the shadows that threatened her own life. As evening fell, Helena sat behind the counter of the Blue Star Diner, the glow of neon signs flickering through the dusty windows. The once silent diner now hummed with quiet purpose. Plans, codes, and whispers filled the room as allies gathered to prepare for what lay ahead. She looked up at the photo of her Uncle Lucas on the wall, a man whose life had been shrouded in mystery, but whose legacy was now hers to carry. She felt a surge of pride mixed with sorrow. The road was long and the fight far from over, but Helena Martins was ready to face it head-on, no matter the cost. The past was behind her, the future uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure: she would never walk this road alone again.